Hey guys, welcome to Inspirations TV, where our intention is not only to inspire you, but to offer you helpful tools and resources of valuable information to assist you in living a life of fulfillment in all areas. On today's episode, I'm going to be discussing setting and fulfilling your intentions for 2021. Stay tuned. Hi guys, welcome to today's episode of setting and fulfilling your intentions for 2021. I'm really excited about this episode. I know a lot of you either have not even set your intentions yet for the year, or you've already kind of started thinking about it. So break out your pen and paper or whatever it is that you take notes on, and make sure it's at least legible so that you can go back and refer to it and make your revisions as you need to. Okay, so the first thing I'm going to talk to you guys about are tools. So I have a cute little acronym that I made up for tools, and it's something that I was able to actually use this year in launching my t-shirt line that I was thinking about for 5 years before I actually launched it. And actually probably was a little bit longer than that when I actually think about it, but we won't go into that. So once I actually used this this year when it came to launching the t-shirt line, I was actually able to use it for my podcast because I really seriously thought about doing a podcast this year. And so look at the difference between waiting over 5 years to do something versus doing something in the same year. So this is why I know it's helpful. So my acronym for tools is 1, time management. That is a really big one. And I'm going to go more into that later. But first, I'm just going to tell you the acronym. O is for optimization, which is really making the most use of your time. And that also goes into time management, but it goes a little further into it. Then the other O is for organization. Organization is huge. If you are not organized, you don't even know where you're going, what you're doing, why. It's just kind of everything is kind of scattered and all over the place. All right. 3, L is for level up, which is really to improve upon something, to improve your current situation of what it is. That's part of what a tool is. And then S is for strategy. Okay. This is how we're going to actually fulfill our intentions, not just set them, not just sit and make a list of goals, because sometimes when we just stop with the list and we have no strategy for how to get there, then it just kind of goes to the wayside. And, you know, if we do it, that's fine. If we don't, we've kind of already let ourselves off the hook. So these are my strategies. So for me, I'm going to, give you guys a little personal thing with me that I had issues with, which was time management. I was horrible. And I still, sometimes struggle with it. And I've come up with some different things that I can do in order to make sure that, I'm actually making the most use of my time. Because one of the things I hear people say a lot is, I don't watch much TV. I hardly watch TV. I don't watch any TV. I don't watch TV shows. I don't watch movies. I just, I'm not really into TV. Okay. So I had this rule, and this is something you guys can write down for you. I had this rule that during the week, Monday through Friday, on my school nights or work nights, that I would not watch any recreational television. Okay. So that was actually pretty helpful. But the thing that I noticed is that my screen time was kind of substituting my TV time. And what I think is so important for people to remember is that screen time is the new TV. It is the new time sucker. And we want to make sure that we're not just kind of mindlessly watching things. So while you may not be watching much TV, how much time are you spending on Twitter and TikTok and Facebook and IG and, all these other things? Now, educationally, I think it's very helpful. And I'm not saying that you can't have any recreational time, but you really want to monitor that. I was reading something that was saying something about how on average we can spend 11 hours of screen time. Now, part of that time might be for your jobs, but if it's not for your jobs, you really want to look at how it is that you are managing your screen time. Because sometimes you can just kind of start by Googling something for, helping you execute on your goals. And then the next thing you know, it's 2 hours later, you're on TikTok, you're just kind of mindlessly, in this sort of trance and not really getting anywhere. And you go, oh my gosh, it's already 3 o'clock. It's already 6 o'clock. It's already 8 o'clock. Oh my gosh, it's 10 o'clock. I need to get ready for bed. So that is something that I'm going to help you guys with managing, setting time limits on things and other little tools of where you can, get help for doing that. There's some great apps out there that kind of can help you. I think IGTV has, or not IGTV, but IG has a timer where you can actually see how much time that you actually spent on the app. So that's what I would definitely recommend for people. I'm not sure about the other apps because I'm not as well versed in the other apps, but if there are time limits that you can set on these things, when it comes to leisurely browsing, you want to make sure that when you're saying to yourself, you don't have time, you ran out of time, we all have the same 24 hours and we all have different responsibilities, and those responsibilities take time. So before you say that you don't have time, before you say, oh, well, I don't watch TV, okay, well, that's great. But the thing is, TV isn't bad. It's like what we do with it is bad. When we just completely zone out and lose ourselves in it to the point to where it's sucking away all of our time. And before we know it, it's Tuesday, it's Wednesday, it's Friday, it's Saturday, and we're just kind of marathon watching the same stuff. And so while it's good to kind of reward yourself with your, your little fuck off days, it's great to have those, but there should be some type of strategy where, one, you're educating yourself when you're on the screen. It's not just you mindlessly kind of going through it, but you want to make sure that, you're not taking away time from you executing on your goals, because that's what we want. We want to fulfill our goals. Okay. So optimization. So for those of you who are maybe entrepreneurs or, whatever it is that you're doing, like maybe you have to be on social media, like me, you have a podcast, you have a t-shirt line, you're building a brand, but maybe it's just kind of taking a little bit too much of your time, and then you kind of deviate and you end up, again, down the rabbit hole of Google or social media. And then before you know it, you're like, why am I even on here? What was it? What was it I was even looking for? What was I doing? So, one of the things you might want to do to optimize your time, maybe, you're a parent, maybe you have a daughter or a son, a child, or maybe you have a niece or nephew who loves social media. Maybe it could be an opportunity for them to earn a little money on this side. And if they're responsible and they can help you with your content, they can help you build your following, get that help. If you need a social media manager, get that help. Whatever it is, it's going to help you make the most use of your time. So you can be building your content while someone else is helping you build your following. So that's a way of optimizing. And you'll be surprised at like the amount of time that it frees up for you to actually build your own content. So the other one is level up. Okay. So we really want to make sure that we're executing, we're actually stepping into our greatness, that we're not making excuses for ourselves. So part of how we do that is we have a strategy, right? And it doesn't mean that we can't deviate from the strategy. We can always deviate, but at the same time, we want to have a good starting place. It's no different than if, say, we're going to a new area, we're taking a trip somewhere, right? And when we take a trip somewhere and we don't know how to get there, we turn on our GPS and we see the suggested route that the GPS is taking us on. And we're thinking, okay, well, I don't really want to take the 101 the whole way there. I'm going to get off on Laurel Canyon. I'm going to go back this way. And, we can always deviate from the strategy, but when we don't start with a strategy, that's where we really kind of screw ourselves over. And then before we know it, we're just sort of wasting time. So one of the things that's been really helpful for me this year, and this is another good one for you guys to write down, is one, I have now a little white dry eraser board in my bedroom on the wall next to the door. And what I do is that every week, and sometimes daily, sometimes I'll update it every single day, but at least weekly, when I wake up, it's literally the first thing that I see when I wake up, okay? And when you have that as a reminder, you're not just sort of like aimlessly wandering through your day, just thinking, okay, once I have time, I'll do it. And that's just like one of those things that we tell ourselves that we don't have things. And then we wonder why we don't materialize. Saying that you don't have time is kind of a feeling of lack. It's a feeling of insecurity, of limitation. So anytime, like if you're one of those people like I've been in my past where you're always running late, there's an underlying feeling of lack in your life. Lack and like not enoughness, something, just scarcity. So we really want to pull away from that because that's very fearful and anxiety based, and we don't want to move into, the new year with this scarcity limited thinking of there's not enough. Okay, there's plenty, there is more than enough. And even if you only have, a few hours a day, like say if you have kids or something like that. But for those of us who don't have kids, we don't take care of a parent, we don't really have that excuse. So I really kind of want to erase that excuse from people. But I also I want for people to know that when they have kids, I saw this really great episode once of this Netflix show called One Day at a Time. And it's a really great show. And in the episode, the mom was going back to school, and she had 2 kids and a mom, and she also was working a full-time job, and she couldn't do it all. And so she ended up deciding that she wanted to leave school. She was like, oh, I just can't do it. And I loved it because at the end of it, the kids and the mom really listened to her and said, it's not that you can't do it, it's that you can't do it all. And you can't do it all by yourself. So that again goes into optimizing your time, giving kids chores, delegating responsibility to where it's more equal and it's more even, and that will free up a lot of your time. So there's more than enough time, and you are more than enough. So remember that. Anytime you're saying that you don't have enough of something, part of what you're hearing, the narrative that you're hearing in your mind, is that somehow you're not enough. So that's something that in years past, a lot of people have done, not just me, I know, but a lot of people have done and sometimes do just very unconsciously, and we don't really think twice about it. So that's something that I want you to really keep in mind. So the next thing that I want to talk to you guys about are SMART goals, okay? So SMART goals are awesome, and I'm going to actually pop up a little SMART goal chart for you guys to look at and follow along with, okay? All right, so SMART goals stands for specific, measurable, action plan, realistic, and time limit. Okay, so specific goals are good goals that are clear, they're defined, and it makes them a lot easier for you to accomplish them. So specific in my particular case was, I'm going to use the example of my t-shirt line. Specific was, I am going to build my inspirational quotes t-shirt line. And that was very specific. So I made it measurable, okay? You must be able to measure your progress towards your goal, which means you need to set different milestones. And by milestones, we really mean at a level of, progression, not necessarily perfection, but progression. Am I progressing in this goal? Okay, so for me, part of that was I needed to, get Photoshop, and I needed to do, or I could have used Canva only. I use Canva for a lot of my quotes. But I use these sort of, milestones as a way to, getting to achieve my goal. So I had to make it measurable. And obviously what was going to be measurable was that I was able to launch my t-shirt line. Okay. So action plan. And see, all of these all really go together. I really love how measurable and action plan and time limit all kind of, I feel like those are the most important ones. So just kind of think MAPT. Those are the main things that we really want to focus on. But we're also going to go over all of them, of course. So action plan was, okay, I need to download Canva or Photoshop. I have to come up with the inspirational sayings that I want to do. I want to come up with the different fonts that I want to use. Are certain ones going to have different fonts? Are some of them going to have the same font throughout the entire shirt? Will there be images that I want to use? And different things like that, and where I could just kind of, gauge what it was that I wanted to do and what I wanted to accomplish. And then realistic, make sure your goals are realistic, something that can be completed within the time frame that you're giving yourself. So, with the creative process, you can't always put an exact, I'm really reluctant to say this because I know how our spiritual ego kind of comes in and says, see, yeah, I can't set a deadline. Yes, you can. So don't let your spiritual ego kind of come in and try to tell you that. But realistic in the sense that, if you're going to be launching something like a t-shirt line, you're probably not going to do that in a week. There's probably going to be a lot of steps. You're going to look at different drop shippers if you want to use the drop shipping method. You might want to look at different screen printers in case you want to have your own inventory. There's that. If you say, okay, let's use this because this is something that's realistic. Now, if you don't have a lot of storage in your home, then you might want to go more the drop shipping route. That might be more realistic, okay? So that's what I really mean by realistic. And, looking at the timetables that the screen printers are giving you or that the drop shippers are giving you, you have to make sure that what it is that you're promising your consumers for, for this particular example, is something that, you're okay with. If it's going to be like this long wait time before, something gets shipped out, then that's not going to be realistic if that's not sort of your business model that you want to go by. And then the last one is time limit. Give yourself a time limit to reach your goal, okay? And this is one of the things that I talked about in my first debut episode of Woman Up, is that you have to set deadlines. If you do not set deadlines, you more than likely, you will not accomplish your goals, you won't fulfill them, and if you do, it won't be consistent. And the key is not just to fulfill a goal once, but it's to be able to repeat it over and over again with consistency. It's not about, and I'll use now the example of my podcast, right? It's not about, okay, well, I did put out an episode a few weeks ago. No, this has to be a regular thing. What is my expectation for my audience? Is my audience expecting me to, launch these episodes once a week, every Tuesday, every Tuesday morning, every Tuesday afternoon? What is it? Because if you can't even communicate to your audience, to your consumers, to your followers, if you can't even communicate to them when it is that they can expect and rely on your consistency, then you're not creating your own consistency that you can actually rely on. So that's why these are so, so important. So please set time limits. And again, when I say time limit, I mean literally give yourself a deadline. Don't just say, I want to do a few episodes before the end of the year, or you know what I mean? Something like that that's really vague. Say, my episodes air on this day, on this time, starting this date, And, you know, that's where these apps that I'm going to explain to you are going to be really helpful for you. Okay, so now that we've discussed SMART goals, I want to give you guys some really helpful tips of different apps you can use. Now, me personally, I'm very old school. So I really enjoy, you know, planners. I can't wait because I'm actually going to go to Staples later and get a planner. I love planners because I like writing things out. It's something about writing out my goals that just feels really, really good. And it commits me in a certain way that for me, typing doesn't always do. So that's why I want to tell you about these apps, because I know some of you are very digital oriented. So the first app I'm going to talk about is called Way of Life. They have a free and a paid version. So certain, you know, obviously certain features you can get on the paid that you won't get on the free one, but it's definitely worth checking out. And other similar apps like this. And what this particular app helps you do, it helps you gauge how much time you're spending on your good habits as well as your bad habits. So remember how earlier I was talking about screen time and managing your screen time, even if it's not by way of TV. It really helps you kind of figure out where all of your time is going. So I think that's super, super helpful. So the other one is called A Tracker, which helps you figure out how much time you're actually spending on your goals. So there's, again, a free and a paid version where you can actually put in your goals, and then it helps you see how much time you're actually spending on your goals. So it kind of goes along with the other one, but I like the other one too because it's helping you manage, you know, your good and bad habits, so that way you can kind of allocate your time better. So I think that's super helpful. The other one is called Life Tick, which is a goal setting app. So it lets you kind of track, again, your time. It's very similar to the last one I just mentioned, which was A Tracker. But this one actually shows you different like milestones and like what your progressions are. And it has this cool little chart, which I think is really cool. So if you don't use these apps, there's plenty of other apps in the world that you can use. And some of them are just websites, others are apps. And I know like people are kind of glued to their phones, but I try to do things to get people away from their phones. So one of the things that I started doing, and this was, I think, around the summertime, there was just a lot of content out there in media that was just kind of like taking me on this emotional roller coaster. So one of the things that I did was I deleted Instagram off of my phone, so that way I would actually, you know, have to go to my computer, and, you know, you don't really get a lot of the same features. Instagram on your computer is very different than Instagram on your phone, right? It does a lot of the same things, but it's a different kind of interaction. So I really feel like it's so important when we're trying to accomplish new goals that we make our bad habits more inconvenient to do. Right? So if you're addicted to Facebook, or you're addicted to Twitter, or you know, make it actually kind of a challenge for you to get to it. Okay. And then I think there was my episode with Dr. Lori Watley on the episode of Connected and Engaged. She had a really helpful tip of just kind of limiting your screen time, which means sometimes maybe have your phone in a different room. And if it causes you anxiety, you know you're a little bit addicted to it. So I know it's so easy to like use our phones for everything because they have so many great features, right? They have, you know, your timer and this and that, but sometimes just kind of turning off your notifications, you know, silencing them, and just giving yourself blocks of time. You know what I mean? Where you can reward yourself, because we all know that, you know, screens definitely do give us some sense of a dopamine release, but we want to be able to create a dopamine release without always having to use our phones. So again, when you're educating yourself, if you are informing yourself, becoming more self-aware, you know, you're using it for educational purposes as opposed to just kind of getting sucked down the hole of, you know, just kind of getting lost and being entranced. But not all screen time is created equally, right? So, you know, while it is great to have that leisure, you know, maybe make that a reward. okay, I worked for 4 hours on my goal, I studied for 3 hours, whatever it is, now I get to have, 30 minutes of screen time, and make that your reward, because it's not always about buying yourself something or, escaping and like, taking a trip. I mean, these things are great, but they can get very expensive once you monetize every reward. So you want to do things that you don't always have to monetize, because making money shouldn't always be about spending more money, right? So, that was just something that I learned, when I was working on, launching my t-shirt line. But now that I've gotten into a groove of it, it's a lot easier. So the idea is that, you start with strategy, you can always deviate from it. But the thing is, you want to learn how to be consistent. You want to know how to be able to be disciplined, to make sure that you're not just having a good week and then you have 3 shitty ones. That's not going to help you feel better about yourself. And I want you to feel better about yourself, because part of why you don't do the things that you say that you're going to do is because part of you doesn't believe in yourself. Part of you just has succumbed to, oh, okay, well, this is just how my life is. I just don't have enough time. I just don't have enough money. I just don't have enough resources. And, like the Tony Robbins saying goes, it's not that we don't have enough resources, it's that we're not resourceful enough. And I love that, because that really stood out to me, because it really is about being resourceful. Back to my acronym for, tools of like optimizing your time, figuring out how you can delegate different responsibilities so that not everything is on you. And that also goes into the R, right? For the SMART goals acronym of being realistic. Maybe you can do it. Maybe you can go back to school. Maybe you can take that class. Maybe you can, whatever it is that you want to do. There are ways for you to do it. You just have to find the ways to make sure that you can. Maybe you can go back to school part-time instead of full-time. It's just never too late. It's never too late, and we need to remember that. So I hope these tips and tools are like really helpful for you. So feel free to leave me a message in the comments. You can also go to my IG and DM me at inspirations. And I'd really love to hear, what your goals are. What are the things that you're wanting to accomplish? And another thing that I want to mention is that starting next month, which is next week and next year, I'm going to start hosting my mind movie workshops again. So I'm going to have a whole other video on my movie workshop. So I'm going to leave that as a little cliffhanger for the day. But I'm really excited about it, and I'll be doing it locally, social distance, and people will also have an option to join in by Zoom. But sometimes people just need to feel a sense of connection, even if people are all like 6 feet away. Just having that human interaction is something that we're missing a lot these days. And so any opportunity we can have to kind of reintegrate that into our lives is a really good thing. So again, thank you guys for watching, and I will see you next time. Have a happy new year, and I'll see you next year.